Modest here. After a successful painting of the upper and lower hull of the Leopard 2 AVLB, we will continue with the Panzerschnellbrücke and start on what I referred to as one of the more complex portions of this build. We're going to go ahead and start on the front support blade, the Stutzchild, or as I would like to call it, the Spade. The Stutzchild, the front support structure, will be located at the front end of this Leopard 2. I do want to point out that this section is going to be on step number 7 of our Hobby Boss 1/35th scale Leguan. And I also want to point out that this support beam is going to be hopefully articulated, movable, for us to show how that's going to be working. And in the real tank, it's used not just as a front support beam for laying down the bridge as it cantilevers downward, and it also provides some clearing using these horizontal and triangular supports with these cylinders that actually clear out and level the ground before the tank. Because you do want to have a leveled area for when the bridge is being laid down, and also to give you some support as you're doing it as well. So we're going to go and get started on that. I'm going to go ahead and remove the tank right now because we don't need that right now, and get started on the pieces and start cutting those things up, and hopefully it'll be a good build. So let's get started. So on this next section, we're going to be needing parts for the J tree, just a few of those, mostly for the blade itself, but mostly the U tree and the F tree, with a few small pieces from the K tree. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. It seems it's just on one single page, which is pretty helpful, but we're going to try to make this thing articulated and actually try to attach that onto the tank itself. Just to let you know, I'm going to be also building this with this video with some stills, so that way I could show you what those look like in still photographs. So bear in mind that even though I'm using the Pixel 7 for the video, I'm going to be using my old camera to show you the stills. So that way you can get a pretty good idea. It's not 4K, but it does a pretty good job on doing that. So let's go. So what I've determined from the J tree here, it looks like we're going to need parts 15, right here where my thumb is, 18, over here where my right thumb is, 21, again with my left, and 20, which one is that one? 22. They're pretty prominent, except for 15 is a little bit hidden there. But they're pretty prominent, so we're going to go ahead and cut those parts out right now. And from the K sprue, we're going to go ahead and cut out a few pieces, just 3, I think. It's going to be K20, K18, and K19. Now, I do want to point out that K18 and 19, they're very similar. They're just mirror products of these guys. K20 is this little guy right over here where my right thumb is pointing to, right underneath there. So we're going to cut out K20. And we're just going to start out by K18 first, because I don't want to get those pieces mixed up. And then we'll cut K19 a little bit later. Then the rest of the sprues that we're going to be needing, them from the F sprues. We'll cut those later. There's quite a few of those things that we're going to be need. And also from the U sprue as well. So we're going to get a few of those guys. So we're going to cut those in order, starting from the upper left of the instructions and continue going down. So very quickly, I do want to point out a couple things about the sprues, trees. Just a little bit on that blade itself. You might want to shave a little bit and then sand down a little bit of the spurs that are along here. There are two of them on either side of here. I've already attached the side mounts for that blade, but in order for that to fit together, there were also a couple of little stingers of sprue tree around there. So when you're doing that, just go along the flush edge of this piece. I believe it's J21. Get along the flush edge. There are two parts, one on either side where my fingers are pointing to right now. I'll just bring it up a little bit closer for you. Let me bring that light in a little bit. Right up over here, right in the middle of those teeth that are there, those weird looking three little prongs, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle there. Don't worry about those guys that are here. This is going to be covered up, I'm pretty sure. And then test fitting it, laying it down. Get on there. It seems to be pretty flush with a little bit of a angled tooth, a little bit of a grating area that you see there where my thumb is. I'll glue that down, make it a little bit neater. But it does fit flushly onto that part. So just FYI about that. So this is the first part of it so far. Fits on there really nicely. As you can see, you have that bit of a lip here. Okay, that's intentional, so don't get it flush with part number 21 to the lower part of J18. There should be a little bit of a lip as you see it in my real photos of my Leguan. Okay, so that looks good so far. I did not attack it or clamp it down onto the sides. It seems to fit pretty well. I do also want to point out, just be careful with this part right here that I'm pointing to right now. At first I thought it was on the front end, but it's actually on the back end of the tank, of the blade that is, okay? So now we're going to go into the F sprue. We're going to go ahead and get some of these smaller pieces that are here, starting with F5, which I'm pointing to right now, this guy right here. It's just a small little tie down, it looks like, that we're going to clip off. But there's a piece of excessive sprue that's on there. So again, using your nail clippers, start that first. Trim that off and then grip it. Maybe I should have done the opposite way. I should have held on to that piece. And then snafu. Oops. Don't lose it. There it is. Okay, so that's the next thing we're going to lay down. We're going to go ahead and get the other one for the other F tree, but this time I'm going to cut it from the sprue first. I'm able to grip that a lot better. So yeah, don't trim that little part yet. This little guy right here. Don't trim that guy yet, so that way you'll be able to grip it and just trim that part away with your nail clippers. That seems fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a knife. Yeah, that's much better. Should have done that first. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and snap that part off. And then just clean as normal. Clean as normal. So be careful that you don't lose it, ladies and gentlemen. Clean off a little bit of that seam. All right, let's go and attach it. So with one tie down already attached, I glued it from the back. Always glue it from the back. It seems to be a lot better, ladies and gentlemen, so that way you don't make a mess up in the more detailed part. It's a really nice looking piece. And just this one piece. Hobby Boss, you did a great job and a lot of details. The screws, the bolts, the textures, the rivets. Looks really cool. I have to commend you on that. And Hobby Boss always does a good job on that. And even on the illustrations, they give you an idea what where to put those, so that textured section should be facing down with the tie down facing up a bit. Okay, so place it on there with your tweezers. I'm going to just hold the back end, the front end actually. Start banging into that darn camera pole. Maybe you should take a drink. How many times I got to say camera pole? And there you go. Just press down on it a little bit. And it looks good. Next, we're going to go ahead and attach that onto here. Just to do a real quick test fit. And there it is. Pretty good looking blade. All right. So we're going to go ahead and continue. The next part is going to be the harder part. This was pretty easy, getting that blade attachment for the leveling and grading of the ground. Again, very nice looking piece. Fits well, really well, without any extras or any putty or anything like that. Okay. So I'm getting ready to start doing the articulation. And again, always test fit your parts, ladies and gentlemen. Always test fit. I came by and accidentally cut the incorrect part, which it looks, come here you, totally similar to the other side. But if you look very closely, I'm going to try to show this into you still, that it looks like to be what looks like a cotter pin going vertically in this aspect. I'll try to show it to you a little bit closer in the video. Vertically in this aspect. And I said, that cannot go into this, what looks to be some sort of joint. And number two, it doesn't even fit. So I was going, well, wait a minute, am I doing this incorrectly? So I looked again, and sure enough, I cut the wrong piece. Boy, oh boy, I tell you, I know my numbers, and that one fitted quite well for its articulation. And even more so, as I put it into where it's supposed to go in the slot. Yep, that way, the slot. As I put it into the slot, obviously there's no jiggle, and compared to this other slot where there was a bit of a jiggle there. So that right there tells me, okay, that's got to be the incorrect piece. This, obviously, that's part of the snowshoe. I think that's what they're called, snowshoes for the tracks themselves. That's this portion, those little X's that you see up there. Those are the snowshoe tracks. I believe to give it some traction for when it's moving around in ice or snowy conditions. So we're going to go ahead and fix that part and continue with the articulation. I was a little curious on how that pin, it's not too large, it's a little stubby little pin that goes and attaches here. It barely goes maybe about midway through this beam that's coming towards me. But the other portion, the triangular portion, there's a hole right over here where this pin fits in there. And it will come by and attach itself to basically the other end. I could get it in there. Just had it in there. There we go. Of that pin. Now, I'm not going to glue it, but it does fit in there quite nicely. There's another support that's right here that will go on the other side, and that takes care of this triangular piece from being articulated as well. So it does require a little patience, not a major thing, but I did glue it from the back, but you want to make sure that it's flush. So once you attach that glue on there, I probably would just set it aside. Give yourself some time, let it set, and then I added glue along the outer edges on the top a little bit, just to give it a little bit more support. I'm not going to do any more gluing on that one, but I'm going to go ahead and do the next side. And before I attach that, slip this guy in there and attach everything together. So, okay, so the next part is to yikes, glue down that triangular piece, and at the same time make that this beam here articulated, and at the same time gluing it down. So it's a bit of a trick. I'm going to use my third hand here, and just be patient with me. We're going to go ahead and attach this triangular piece on here first, like such, and then we're going to go ahead and fit that puppy onto the other side, that pin over here that I'm brushing up with my middle finger, my middle index finger, the nail there, and attaching it on there. It's a bit of a trick. Oh, let's do it this way. So it's a bit of a trick. Basically what I did was grabbing that support in from the other side of that pin. I kind of glued it down. I said, that's not going to work. Okay, so I removed it, so that's why you see a little bit of the glue marks. But that actually gave me some texture to actually grab this side of the pin, slip it in through here, okay, and then kind of like push that one part down inside there. So now you have this triangular piece articulated here. Let me see if I can zoom that in for you. You have this part articulated here, and with the other side, and it's a little bit of a trick here, the other side, slip that other pin through, and kind of push that one down. And that seems to be the best way of actually putting those pieces down. Now I do want to point out that there is a strange piece of the plastic, piece of the molded part, that does not want to go flush to this guy. So I'm not too sure if that's supposed to be that way, if it's supposed to be kind of like in a strange raised position like that. I'll try to show it to you in a still. But that's how that guy goes. And then carefully glue those parts down. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this support that I'm pointing to with my tweezers. I'm going to go glue that part down so that way this part is articulated. And then slip in the other side. That's kind of weird. That other side, and make that last beam articulated. So I'll show that to you later. All the pieces so far have been attached. They are articulated. The triangular portion is a little bit stubborn, but that's totally doable for me. That's not a big deal. The other supports, I don't know why we have this very strange looking foot right here, right over here. But you know what? I think it probably just makes it, give it a brace, gives it a bit of a foot, a rest, maybe for these two vertical beams to lay down in front of the tank, so it doesn't just like plow into the tank or whatever the case may be. So we'll see. We're going to find out very shortly. But all the pieces have been glued down. The supports have been glued down. I'm going to go ahead and glue down the other supports on the other side of the triangle, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so we got the last of the supports down. Everything seems to be really good. Nice, smooth articulation so far. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and attach this guy onto this one, okay, and have that somewhat articulated as well. I'm assuming that this thing's not going to be, like I said, not going to plow into the ground, but it's going to be in such a fashion that it's going to be able to maneuver this thing and actually bring it down to a certain position and grate the area. Okay, so that's the next step that we're going to be taking. So everything's coming out pretty well. I do want to add, though, one specific thing in the sense of order and how to attach things if you're going to do this kit. first of all, you want to get one of the struts right over here secured. Doesn't matter which one. Well, this was kind of weird with that weird little foot there. But attach one of those guys. Slip this A-frame, this triangular piece in. Slip that in. Followed by, carefully, it's going to be a bit of a trick. Get this one mount right here. Get that mount onto this A-frame. And glue that on. Once you glue that on, you're going to go ahead and get this outer portion, the point that I'm pointing to right now with the tweezers. Get that outer mount down. It's going to be a little bit of a force, not much pressure to start with the base and then push that pin inside that hole to actually make this thing articulated. Then once you got that part done, then do the other supports on the opposite sides, the inner portions of this V frame here, this triangular frame, the A frame I like to call it. And that requires a little bit of pressure as well to snap it out at the base and then push that pin in. There's another pin that's on this one piece, on both of those guys. So hopefully you'll be able to push that in and then snap that part in and then glue it from the bottom. Once that's secured, add a little bit of glue on the edges. There's like another face that's here on that one part, J15, that allows you to actually anchor it, perpendicular to each other. So add glue to the edge there on both sides. And that's what I did, and it seems to be working pretty well. So having that third arm, which I use for my electrical stuff, actually did the trick. Okay, so that's the order that I would do it. So don't get too frustrated. Follow the order I gave you. Attach those two. Okay, glue those on. Glue that one support on. Add that VA frame, that triangular frame. Add that on there with the other base, the other support that's over there in the middle. There's three of them. Add that one in the middle. Slide that guy in there. Glue that guy down. Add the outer support beam, the outer one that's over here. Okay. Then once you get those two, then get the last inner supports for that triangular frame, that A-frame, this part that I'm pointing to right now. And that will be my suggestion of attaching that thing on there. All right? If you have any questions, let me know. All right, so going back to the grate, it seems those instructions are kind of strange. They kind of split it down the left and right side. So there's not really an order for you to go, but they do split it. So I should have followed this down thoroughly to the very end, to at least this portion right here at least. Maybe I should have stopped there. And then the same thing for the articulated armatures, stopping right here and then continuing on over here. Just be aware. I saw those arrows before. I just assumed that, okay, I do this part, then I go over here, and then they're going to connect. But no, they're going to connect somewhere over here, towards the bottom down here. So just be aware of that. We're going to go ahead and do this part of the grate right now, that part of the support. So I've already cut out F26, which is this pin right here. It's a pretty thick pin. And U13, which is, it's a bit of a delicate structure. The support, whoops, get in here. The attachment point is this little nib, this little tab right here that I'm scratching with my finger there. That's where it needs to attach onto the grate. Now, it's a little confusing. I played around with it, and it looks like she's going to fit on the outer portion of this grate here. I believe. That's, oops, there it goes. Okay, it's going to attach itself to the outer portion right here. It does fit kind of snugly in there. I'll try to photograph it for you so that way you can see what's going on. It looks like the other attachment point is for these, the attachment of the support arms. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and attach that on there and take a look to see how it does. So as I was getting ready to install these cylinders, they're a little bit tricky in a sense where to glue them because there's no pin. It's just very flush, and when you attach the other side of that hinge for that cylinder, it's very, very loose. Okay, so I'm going to come by, do two things. I'm going to shave just a little bit, give it some texture there, and then sand this guy down just a little bit there, also to give it some texture, because otherwise there's really no way for this hinge to stay put. And even though there's a pretty good sized pin here, okay, that goes right inside there for that cylinder, there's no corresponding hole. Well, it looks like a ejector pin mark, but that's way too small for me to even come by and glue something on there. So I'm gonna sand that flat side down just a little bit, not too much, and give it a little bit of a bite on this guy. Okay, so just to let you know what I'm going to do. I'm getting ready to glue that cylinder down, one of the two. Just FYI, I was fumbling around with it, seeing where I'm going to touch the glue. I was getting ready to put glue just a little bit on that outer edge right here of that circle where that pin actually fits through. Hopefully you can see that. I was going to come by and put glue right along, just a little bit along that edge right here, right where my tweezers are. But instead, don't do that. Attach it right on this part, on that elevated area. I made a small error and I trimmed a little bit too much of the corresponding part on the other side. It looks like it should have been some sort of a little bit of a bridge here. I wasn't too sure, so that was kind of like strike one on me on how that fitted. But once you get it, clamp it down. I'm going to get my clamps in just a second, so that way I could glue this first cylinder down. So real quick, I just finished gluing down the cylinders. The cylinders seem to be holding up pretty well. The other one's still drying. But the cool thing is that Hobby Boss made this cylinder here that I'm moving back and forth here hollow, which is kind of cool for that pin to go inside there pretty easily, kind of sort of easily. Anyways, it's one piece. This guy right here is one whole piece, the part that I'm showing you right now. There's no gluing to halves together. It's just one solid piece that's there. So that was kind of cool. Way to go, Hobby Boss. That was a pretty neat little thing that you did. Okay, so the next thing I was getting ready to do, getting ready to attach the cylinders. But before that, there was a hinge. There's two of them, one on either side of these brackets here with the foot. And I was wondering, okay, so how's this thing going to attach? So I was fumbling around with it, and seeing how this attached here, making sure I got the proper pins in the proper places there. And as I noticed, there was a small tab. I'm going to remove it. Come here, you. There's a very small tab, which you don't want to come by and just swipe off and just cut away. That very small tab right there at the tip of my fingertip right there. I'll try to photograph it for you. And I noticed, okay, so where does that go? Well, I looked at it, and it seems to fit right about in here. So right there in the grate, okay? And it's shaped in such a fashion, you look at it, there is a bit of a tooth right here at the very end. And that tooth fits really nicely along this grate right here. Right around on that grate, right there on that very small edge right here. Very small edge, right there where my knife is pointing to. So I'll photograph it for you. To make sure. But the point is that this thing is upside down. Okay, so I'm going to need to flip this guy over eventually, the support beams, and to get this thing all together. But that's how that's going to work out. Okay, so I'm going to just reattach that pin there. It tells me right now just to leave it be, just to leave it alone. So I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to attach the other one that was U61 over here on this side, and then U62 on that foot side. Okay, so after having the glue set for a little while, I think it's time for us to go ahead and secure those cylinders, those hydraulic cylinders. I decided to actually use regular glue. Hopefully that will give us a better bond. Hopefully. I'm going to go ahead and install these guys on here. Now, they are universal, so it really doesn't matter which one goes where. But they do look like they fit right on in there. Now, they do curve around this part of J15. So once that glue is set, I'll probably add a little bit more. Make sure it's flush over here on this side. That might be important there. And then go ahead and attach the other one. Now I did add a good amount inside and on the edge, inside those slots there. I want to make sure that plastic gets melted in there. And then attach the other. Again, they're universal, so it really doesn't matter which side they work on. I'm going to go ahead and press it down a little bit. I was thinking about adding crazy glue to it, but I decided that hopefully the glue will do justice for me. Just as long as I'm not making mousing it too much, playing around with it too much. I think that glue should hold on quite well. Okay, we're going to let that rest for a little while. And the only thing I'm going to have possible some difficulty is actually the painting. So far I primed the holes, the lower and upper holes, and spray painted it on the base coat. That seems to be doing well, but now for the articulation, the movable parts, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I might spray paint it with the primer, but maybe even hand painting a majority of the hinges, the majority of the movable parts, especially the parts that are going to go inside. You know, that's going to be difficult. I'm probably going to have to tape these pegs where the cylinder is attached, making sure that there's no paint on there because it is a little stiff going inside there, inside these cylinders here on the edges. So we're gonna give it a shot a little bit later to see how well. Oops, what happened here? Uh-oh, that's a mistake. All right, got a little glue. I didn't notice that. Uh-oh, even worse. Uh-oh, big mistake, I think. Like Mario made his first major error. One of the cylinders is incorrect here. It looks like it's this guy. Oh boy. So I'm going to come back because I noticed that this part right here, this little trapezoidal looking pyramidal looking part, should be facing downward as per the instructions. And this one is facing upward. So I'll probably have to do that one over. Okay, we'll see. I'll come back to you and give you an update. All right, so there is a discrepancy. I was taking a look at my Tankelgrad book. It is a little offset. I made it that way because this part is correct. The right-hand side is the correct one. The left-hand side is incorrect. So I gotta turn that cylinder around. Hopefully not a major issue. We're gonna find out. I just need to split this guy open. And it's funny, it's the incorrect or broken piece one. But separate that out, reglue it. It shouldn't be that big of an issue. There's no pin where it fits in there. I just separate them out and reattach them. The only thing is though is that I've already glued it to that J18 I think it is? J15 part. The J15 part does go under the hole. So it's over here. That's where the J15 fits. Crazily, when I was attaching this, it fits right onto these two parts, which I thought they were tie downs, but they're actually points to where, let's just reattach my tank, points to where this part actually fits in. If you take a look inside there, bring it up a little bit closer to you, right there and there, that's where that fits in those tie downs, right where I'm pointing my fingers at. So it's not attached, it's not all glued down. I did kind of forcibly kind of move those pins inside. There we go. So it's this guy I need to remove. Ouch. No big deal. Okay. Just turn that cylinder around. Going to separate this and reattach it. Okay. So blooper one. And again, you know, that happens sometimes for very complicated models. If you're going to get this kit, expect to have that kind of thing. Now, I should point out that this is the easier of the possible 3 parts that are going to be articulated. The one in the rear, I've been looking at it quite often. It looks quite complex. More complex than this one. This is just one page. So we're going to try that again. We're going to go ahead and separate them and see you soon. All right, so as we're having the right cylinder get it re-cemented, I did scrape off the paint and primer of those what I like to call tie downs. I didn't think they were tie downs. There was no hole through them or anything like that. And I didn't glue them on. But it allows now a little bit cleaner attachment for that hole that's right there. And the other one that will be on the other side shortly to actually fit on that. But as I was looking at my Tankelgrad reference book, I noticed that there was a hydraulic line. So I have a bit of tubing, actually it's heat shrink tube, that I'll probably use. It's a nice color, it's almost about the right size, it fits right over here. I'm going to have to trim it obviously. It'll fit right inside this area right here, as I saw in my Tankelgrad book. So probably maybe drill out a small hole, add a little sprue in there, attach the sprue and hose connection, and it'll just look just like that. It's a little big, but the hose will give it a really nice look to it. And it does, strangely, crawl right up inside this extra armor glacis point. So I'll probably do that. It looks pretty cool. That's what it shows. And so as this thing dries off, we'll reattach it and see how it looks. Phew. Okay, so after much fiddling around, and let me just zoom out a little bit here. Okay, after much fiddling around with the Stutzchild, it is now pretty much completed. The only thing is that I had to like secure it onto the edge, acting like more or less like a third hand for me, because otherwise I'll be having my fingers going all over the place. But it looks good. To be honest with you, I did add a bit of crazy glue up on the upper edges. This one was kind of tight because you have this reinforcement bar that's here. But I did put some on the ends here and here. And also at the very bottom of that same bracket to hold that vertical bracket that's here. Not the V frame, not the A frame here, not that V that we have, but these guys right here. The only thing I needed to do, I think the pins might be a bit short, but to be honest with you, remember that this thing is going to be at an angle. Okay, remove the tape. It's going to be at a little bit at an angle, so it's going to be more or less like this, with the bottom part, this guy right here, that's going to be right underneath the Leopard, with the rest of the body coming out in this fashion. So with that in mind, I'm going to just zoom back out again. Again, sorry for the mess down below. Get myself reorientated here. And I'm just going to push these pins back inside to get them reorientated. So it is a bit delicate, yes. She is a bit delicate to fiddle around with. Great care probably will be needed. But again, I think the mobility is good. Oops, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Not a major sweat. The only thing next to be worried about, get in there. You two, get inside there. The only other thing I need to worry about is painting it. Okay, especially with all the articulation, the movement, the cylinders especially. I probably would have to cover these pegs that keep popping out. They're not popping out now. There we go. I probably have to cover up these pegs with some tape, blue painter's tape. It's nothing major. So that way they don't get painted on, because it's just enough of a friction to actually be able to have these things move back and forth. As you can see here, allows it to move back and forth as this thing's being elevated and lowered. Okay, and again, that's probably gonna pop. We'll see when I attach this onto that lower portion of the hole. Maybe you might want to sand this part down just to make it super flush up against the hole. I'm going to try to put those, I lost it. Where I put it? That pneumatic hose on the ends over here. Okay, probably glue it down. We'll see. I'll probably do that after the paint. But that's going to be the major issue, is how to paint this articular piece. There's just one other piece, that K portion, that 1K part. Where does this go? Well, this guy is actually going to go underneath here. I haven't glued it on yet. So that's where that goes, right there. Boom. That's all it is. A big sweat for that 1K part. Okay, so that's about it. Otherwise, the textures look really nice. I was looking at the bolts down below. They look really, really cool. I'll try to get you a picture of that. Okay. The textures up above. It looks really nice. It looks really good. So Hobby Boss, Yahoo. If anything, maybe add another 2-3 millimeters of this pin. That's would be the only thing I probably would suggest. But again, we'll find out when I attach it onto the hull of the tank. So as you can see right here, with the Leopard 2 body already painted, the Spade looks really good in a lowered position. I'll try to take a picture of it in its flattened form, but it looks really good. As far as some pieces, there was like this one or two little pieces that they asked you to put. One of them you could kind of see. I get my tweezers here. It kind of goes like right in this hole right here. But if I put that thing on there, it's going to lock. It's going to lock that Stutzchild in place. And so I didn't want to do that. So I left that part out. I never glued it on. But what about this one piece from, come here. There's one piece from K. Well, this piece actually goes right underneath that that V-frame. Should go right underneath there. Okay, just have to put it underneath. Okay, but other than that, the textures are good. The placement is good. I did scratch off, as I mentioned before earlier, so I can glue that thing into position. Those what look like tie downs, for lack of a better word, and everything came out really well. It took a bit of time. That's true. There are a lot of moving pieces that you have to take care of. If you have a third arm, this guy right over here, that was quite helpful for me getting those pieces together. So Yahoo! The only other thing I did do was I did use a bit of crazy glue on those last brackets, just right there on the top, on the side here, on the side over here, and at the very, very bottom down below. Give it some good support there. So overall, that is step 7 for the front support blade of the Panzerschnellbrücke of the Leopard 2 PSB2 28 meter from Hobby Boss. For the Spade, for that front support beam, for the Stutzchild, I had 3 decisions. I first initially was thinking about using a bit of heat shrink tube, but then I had some other things. I had this larger piece of spare sprue that seems pretty flexible, excuse me, can be painted. Okay, pretty easy to do. But then I ran across this guy. This was a tie down from some cable or something, some computer cable. And I said to myself, well, you know what? I wonder. It seems flexible. Okay, it does move, and there must be a wire. And sure enough, there is a wire in here that you could see, hopefully, inside this tie. So I'm thinking actually about using this thing. So I came by and I got myself my handy dandy electrical clamps, clippers, whatever you call those things. And I just trimmed off a bit of that plastic part, the insulation, just pulled that part off, just yanked it right out. And drilled out a hole. I already drilled out a hole already on one of those 2 cylinder housings using one of my pin drills. And I just drilled out a certain amount, give it about 30 twists, carefully, moderate pressure, and inserted that tie right inside there. Hopefully you could see that. Getting that pin right in there and gluing that down eventually. I'll trim it down probably to where my thumb starts right there, right over here, and stick that thing right inside the glacis plate. So that's probably what I'll do. It seems pretty good. So here I've already kind of like test fitted it, see how it looks. I raised the glacis plate, the extra plate that was made for this kit. And as I pull this thing down carefully, pull the blade down, hopefully it'll glue on there. But eventually it's going to maneuver itself downward. Let me get my tweezers here. And I haven't glued it on, but it looks like the It looks good. I mean, for what it is, for what it will do, I probably would have to notch a little bit of the glacis point at those two ends where that hydraulic hose goes in. But the size looks good. Let me just go in a little bit closer if I can. Oh, wrong way. Size looks good. Okay. I'm able to retract the blade. And again, I haven't glued anything down yet, so that's why it's moving around so much. But I'll give it some bit of some freedom to tuck itself in there pretty easy. So that's probably what I'll do. Yeah. So to show you what I've done, basically I'm going to go ahead and pull out those pins for the hydraulic cylinders there. And it's right up here where that cylinder, where I made that one mistake. And it was a good thing I caught it, because this thing would have been reversed. It would have been a big headache. But I already drilled out one hole, as you'll see here. I'm using a .032, I think it's inch, diameter drill bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and drill out the other side here. So let me go ahead and get that started. Turns. And I'm going to just spin it around about 20 more times. 6. Okay, go ahead and ease that out. Clean out the sprue. Okay, reinsert it. Another 20. 20. Okay, clear that out. And go and test fit it. You don't want to drill too much, because you don't want to have it pop out the other side there. And Yahoo, that'll work. Okay, that'll work for really well. So give it about 30 twists and glue that on. Now I'm not going to glue it on yet because I still need to paint this. And I'm going to paint this Spade another time. I'm not going to paint it today, not on this video. I'm going to try to see if I can prime and paint this one piece on its own, or should I get the trees, the sprue trees, spray those guys down and paint those guys down with an airbrush, paint them with an airbrush, and cut out those pieces that I need. That's probably what I should do for this kit, especially if I want to keep this whole thing movable, articulated. Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'm going to do one that's a symbol, all right, and the other one I'm going to spray all the trees on. So again, this M modus, telling you what I'm going to be doing for those hydraulic lines, and hopefully you'll see some pictures of that on the finished build later on. Again, comment, like, subscribe, share. Okay, let me know. Thanks for watching.